The Marvel Cinematic Universe is populated with loads of characters, most of which I absolutely love, which is why this list was harder to make than most, especially considering I decided to make this video into a top 5 rather than a top 10. And I also had to consider the fact that my opinion could change within seconds of uploading this video, but for now this is how my opinion on this particular matter stands. So without further ado, let's get right into my top 5 favourite MCU heroes. Kicking off the list is the father of the MCU himself. Iron Man as a character has grown so much since the first film, and I'm not just talking about how the Iron Man suit has gone from an armour that is assembled piece by piece all the way to the nanotech suit. I also mean going from a genius inventor who creates weapons of mass destruction to a genius inventor who is hell-bent on defending the Earth from evil. One of the coolest things about Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, is that he learns from his mistakes, and that is evident in every film he appears in. For example, in Iron Man 3, when he lands in the snow and he has no way of warming himself up, and then in Spider-Man Homecoming we see that Stark has built in a heating system in Spider-Man's suit, or in Civil War when he loses to Cap in hand-to-hand combat, he instills battering rams, a hand blade, 2 shields, and flight stabilizers to keep him flying steadily in Infinity War. The Iron Man suits are awesome, and there are so many of them. We have suits like the Hulkbuster, the Mark 42, the nanotech armor, and I mean, I could tell you about them all, but there's almost 50 at this point, so I'd be here forever. I know it has been said time and time again, but I'm not going to be an exception. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark is one of the best superhero casting choices of all time. He brings so much charm and charisma to the role that it's almost impossible not to like him, even when he's being kind of an a-hole. Which is something I don't think Tom Cruise is very good at, so I'm glad that Marvel didn't cast Tom Cruise in the role when they were considering it. What I love about Chadwick Boseman's performance as T'Challa, aka the Black Panther, is how subdued and controlled his performance is compared to Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange or even RDJ as Iron Man. He doesn't constantly joke around or make random quips, which in most cases isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's because of that quality that T'Challa feels like a king whenever he's on screen, which is good and all, because, you know, he's a freaking world leader, he's the king of Wakanda. But seriously though, he just has this imposing look and feel about him that just tells you this dude means business. With that said, when he wants to be funny, he's quite charming, I'm not gonna lie. T'Challa is both a man of tradition and a believer in world peace, as well as a believer in justice for all, even for his enemies in some respect. Like when he challenged his own father about his decision to leave Eric Killmonger to fend for himself after killing Eric's father. Black Panther has some of the best action sequences in the entirety of the MCU. The scene in Civil War where Black Panther fights Bucky on the rooftops, which is then followed by a tunnel chase, perfectly showcases Black Panther's hand-to-hand combat and acrobatic skills, as well as his courage and willpower. Just a side note, I cannot get enough of the way his suit absorbs kinetic energy and then uses it to create a shockwave. It's a brilliant effect and a truly magnificent way of adding more variety to the action sequences. That and it's just... it's so cool! I will happily rank the Star Wars movies from worst to best. I will gladly admit that I like Batman v Superman. And I will certainly pick ice cream over jelly beans any day. But I will not choose between Rocket and Groot. I know this is kind of a cop-out because this is meant to be a top 5 and I have 2 characters on 1 spot, but oh well, this is my video, my rule, so I can do whatever I want. But yeah, I love both of these characters pretty much equally, and they are my favourite members of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Rocket is a tortured soul who gradually learns what it's like to be part of a family-like dynamic through his relationship with the other Guardians, while also being somewhat of a father figure to Groot. And while Rocket does have a pretty dark past, Bradley Cooper brings a fresh combination of sarcasm, quips, charismatic charm, and rudeness to the character that all comes together to make someone who you'd probably hate in real life become one of the most lovable and hilarious characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then there's Groot. Admittedly, I can't say too much about Groot considering most of his lines of dialogue consist of 3 words, but with all that in mind, there's something almost poetic about the way Groot is portrayed in these movies. In Guardians of the Galaxy 1, we see him as a fully grown adult, and then when we see him again in Volume 2, he's Baby Groot, as well as adorable, and finally, in Infinity War, he's a moody teen. So, sort of like a coming-of-age tale, but in reverse. Groot also has his fair share of brilliant comedic moments in all the films he's appeared in, and the father-son relationship he shares with Rocket is simply touching. All in all, I love both of these characters, and in my mind you can't have one without the other, but then again, I could be wrong considering... yeah. Tom Holland's performance as Spider-Man has everything that makes Spider-Man who he is. He's a dork, a nerd, he's socially awkward, he's not one of the cool kids. And he actually looks the right age this time, so that's a bonus. Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, is arguably the most relatable character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While he's out there being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, he's trying to balance that with keeping his grades up, dealing with having a huge crush on a girl he likes, and trying his absolute hardest to prove himself to his peers, in particular Iron Man, and that's another thing I love about this version of Spider-Man. The mentor-student relationship between Iron Man and Spider-Man is one of my favourite parts of this universe because of how their dynamic plays out. Iron Man is trying to be a good mentor to Spidey so that he can teach him to be better, while, as I mentioned earlier, Spidey is constantly trying to prove himself. Spider-Man's introduction in Captain America Civil War is probably the best superhero introduction of all time, and a perfect way of introducing the character into this franchise. However, watching Civil War and Infinity War actually made me realise something about Spider-Man. That being that he doesn't really know how to act when in the presence of other heroes. For example, in Civil War, when Team Iron Man has Cap cornered, he literally starts talking to Captain America about how he's a big fan of his, right before Iron Man basically tells him to shut up. And then in Infinity War, when he properly meets Doctor Strange, he introduces himself as Peter Parker, but when Doctor Strange responds with, "Doctor Strange," Spidey immediately responds with, "Oh, we're using our made-up names. I'm Spider-Man then." And that's why I find him so relatable, because he's a kid who's just found himself fighting alongside absolute legends, and he doesn't exactly know how to process it. Captain America is without a doubt my favourite character in the MCU, as well as my favourite Avenger. He's a man out of time, trying to navigate a world that he didn't grow up in, who is constantly finding himself butting heads with others because of what he believes is right and wrong. Steve Rogers is such an endearing protagonist in these films because of that. He challenges Nick Fury over his plan to send 3 new helicarriers into the air because he sees it as an imprisonment rather than freedom. He goes against the Sokovia Accords because he thinks they'll restrict him from doing what needs to be done, or stopping him from going somewhere he needs to be. The Captain America title doesn't make Steve Rogers who he is. It's his willpower, his selflessness, and courage that make him who he is. In Civil War, he lets go of his shield because he gets to a point where he just can't see any meaning behind that symbol. But even without the mantle of Captain America, Steve Rogers retains everything that makes him who he is. When Thanos comes down to Earth looking for the Mind Stone, Cap won't just run away at the first sight of the Mad Titan. He'll go straight at Thanos with everything he's got, and you damn right he's gonna come back for round 2. Chris Evans plays this part so well that I can't even see anyone else playing this role as good as he does. I often forget that John Krasinski, of all people, auditioned to play Captain America before Marvel settled on Evans, because he's just so damn good. So those are my favourite heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I do hope you enjoyed this video, but before I go, I would just like to ask you guys, who are your favourite Marvel heroes? Are your opinions similar to mine, or do we have vastly different opinions? Please leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.